PC エンジン512色スーパービジュアル6チャンネルリアルサウンドニューワールドを制覇する PC エンジン全開 NEC から。
Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Esoteric and continuing series, the PC Engine Playhouse, where I take a look at some of my favorite PC Engine games of all time, both HuCard and CD. It would be impossible to talk about the PC Engine without talking about both Shmups and Parodius. I know there's a lot of different versions of this game, and the Sharp X68000 is probably going to be the best outside of the arcade original. But the first time I ever played this game was on PC Engine about 20 years ago. I absolutely fell in love, and it is still my favorite way to play. And if you love horizontal shmups that are both super competent as well as absolutely nonsense, you're gonna love this game. Before I get too far involved though, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like and subscribe, and ring that notification bell. Definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined to want to support the channel, you got a Patreon link down below as well. But what other game is going to let you fight a pirate ship that is half shaped like a cat, or a flying pirate penguin whose belly button is his weak point? I always love when the belly button is the weak area. You see it in Punch-Out, you see it in Parodius. It is a very Japanese sort of thing to have that belly button both protruding and glowing at the same time to indicate a weak spot. But Parodius is not only an incredible shmup, it has such a huge sense of humor. This is basically an offshoot of the Gradius series, except it is weird in every way, shape, or form. If you know anything about me and the channel, you know weird esoteric games are my wheelhouse, and while this might not be esoteric, it is definitely weird in spades. And I love what this game does with the graphics, with the music, with the sound effects. The entire package from start to finish is just an absolute blast. It's one of those games, every time I think of the PC Engine, this is one of the first games that pops into my head, along with something like Rondo of Blood. But I did a Castlevania retrospective about 18 months ago, so you're not going to be seeing that on this playlist. But from the graphics to everything else, the sense of whimsy in this game is just off the charts. Every single sprite, every single background, every single detail is just oozing with weird charm. It makes you happy and smile the entire way you play the game. You're always waiting to see what's going to be coming next, and even if you played the game 5-10 times like I have, you always want to just continue and see the end credits scroll because you want to see all your favorite stages and go from there. Now just be aware that this does lack a few stages that were in the arcade original, so I would say that this is probably not the best way to play the game, but from a purely nostalgic PC Engine perspective, it is still my favorite way. And this is probably one of the most favorite vignettes of the actual game itself. This showgirl coming in with her high heels and her hands on the ceiling is just so indicative of what this game has to offer. You need to go underneath her legs and then back around. You don't actually attack her, it is just a slight obstacle you need to avoid. But of course, this is one of those things, when you see this screenshot, if you know this game, you immediately remember the level, and if you don't know the game, it makes you intrigued to see what else is going on, not from just the lady gyrating her hip standpoint, but from the sheer absurdity of actually seeing something like this in a shmup in and of itself. It is just one of those things. This game oozes personality. Every single square inch of the screen is going to be filled with something, and every single boss is going to be absolutely hilarious, like this American Eagle, clearly Uncle Sam in bird form, and you have to hit him in his bow tie to get that little icon to come out of his top hat. I don't know where they came up with half of the stuff in this game, but whoever was designing the art and the overall game had a huge sense of humor and sense of whimsy. And that really is what this game is all about, this sheer whimsy factor. It doesn't matter what you're looking at, it doesn't matter if it doesn't make any contextual sense in the level you're playing. You are just happy to be able to see what's going to come next and what you might encounter. Now of course you do have the bell system. Gold bells are worth points, and if you shoot them progressively and change the color, each color is going to be a different limited time power up. So there is a lot of screen space management trying to get both your normal attack up with those different icons you see on the screen, and shooting the bells to be able to get them to actually produce a different color. Do it right and you're going to get a great power up, do it wrong and you're going to end up either with points or running into something because you were trying too hard. But what I love about this game as well is the sense of navigation. You can scroll the screen in certain areas up, down, left, and right, and you need to navigate around obstacles at a certain pace. If you're too slow, the screen is going to close in on you and you're not going to have any escape. So learning this game is also a lot of the fun. But the soundtrack remixes of classical music is outstanding, so go ahead and listen for like 45 seconds and I'll be right back. So if you believe the lore on the internet, they either went with classical music because they didn't have the budget and time to create an original score, and or they just decided it would work better for the game. But whatever reason they went with it, it is absolutely amazing to hear that. It is classic Konami musicians doing classical music, and it totally works within the context of the game. And I will say I'm sure that a few times I've probably heard one of those classical compositions first here in Parodius, which is a really interesting way to get an introduction to classical music. But you'll see here as we navigate around this level again, you need to be fast to avoid things. I barely made it down quick enough to shoot through those little colored balls to get into the boss stage. And this is such a strange boss as well. I'm sure there's a lot of different reasons why these things appear. Maybe Japanese sense of humor, I just don't understand. But it is just 8 sets of lips that use their tongue to lick their teeth and send out these what look to be bottle cap teeth coming out. They just remind me of the bottle caps flipped upside down. But again, it doesn't matter why something is in Parodius, you are just happy to see it. The sense of humor and just the sheer absurdity of everything makes this game better than it actually is. And trust me, this is one of my favorite shmups of all time. But if this was the exact same level structure but the graphics and art weren't strange, it wouldn't have that same appeal to me. From the penguins to the chickens to everything else in this game, it is just always something to see and something to do. And it does have some very minor tie-ins to Tobey Polystars, one of my favorite Konami shmups on the 3DO M2, and maybe I'll do an episode tying those two together because it does feel kind of like an offshoot to both Twin Bee as well as Parodius. But this game definitely gets hard as levels go on, and I love this power up here. You're just shouting things in Japanese from a megaphone, and those words are going to damage your opponent. But you have these hilariously happy volcanoes that will turn angry at you and start shooting eggplants out. But you'll see I'm starting to take some deaths now. And while this game is never cheap, it's going to test you in later levels, like these cherry blossom trees here. You don't know until you first play the game that they're actually going to move around and try to attack you. If you're in the right place, you're going to be fine, and if you're in the wrong place, you're going to take a death. But that's a lot of where the fun in Parodius comes from, trying to find out what's going to happen next. It is definitely a game that you can 100% 1cc if you put the effort in, because pretty much every single time the pattern is repeatable. You can move around the screen and give yourself a little bit more space if you play it right, but otherwise the same things are going to happen the same way each and every time, which gives this a lot of replayability, and if you just practice, you're going to get a ton better at it. And the best part is it is just so much fun to see the game in action that practicing just makes you happy. But this right here, a half pig, half sumo wrestler who slams his leg down into the ground and knocks down objects from the sky, is just hilarious. And if you play your cards right and get the right power up, you can become bigger, invulnerable, and do damage just by navigating over your actual opponent. If you get those bells shot into the boss arena, you can hold onto them and actually use them to attack. So it's a real strategy to try to continue to shoot those bells down the screen as long as you possibly can until you need them. But I do love this pinball stage as well. It is so colorful, it is so amazing, and it's got another awesome piece of soundtrack. So go ahead and listen this time for like 25 seconds, and I'll come back and tell you more history about the game. But enjoy! Now that music is very interesting. It is a Japanese composition, and it was the official march of the Imperial Japanese Navy. It is a wartime song and a military song, but when it gets added into Parodius and cheered up just a little bit, you can see how amazingly hilarious it actually is. And I just love that they take music like the Imperial Navy March and use it for a video game, and it totally works in context. And as you move on, this game definitely doesn't get any more normalized. It gets weirder and weirder as you move on, but it definitely pushes the graphical capabilities of the PC Engine as well, and it's something that the NES could never pull off, even though this is technically in the same hardware generation. All of those clouds and the parallax scrolling in the background sells a great sense of illusion that there actually is depth here, and of course it is still Parodius, so you're going to get some very strange things going on. I love all the screen transitions. We were outside, now we're what looks like in a church or maybe a chapel, and you have to fight this gigantic woman laying on her side. Again, this is another one of those screenshots that's just so quintessentially classically Parodius. When you see this online, if you played the game, you know exactly where it takes place in the level, and if you've never played it before, it intrigues you, makes you wonder what the hell's going on. And in some ways, in some spots in this game, it reminds me of Cho-Aniki and Cho-Aniki on the PC Engine as well. Definitely better than those games, but it has that same sense of humor, and it also has eggplant, so that's shared between two of the games. But the most hilarious part is, and I always forget this and I was looking away, is that when you actually defeat this boss and start scrolling to the right, it doesn't go away whatsoever. Sure, it'll start to gray out, but you still have a hitbox and you can take a death. This game surprises me even though I played it dozens of times. But that is Parodius. If you've never played it, definitely check it out. If you have played it, it's probably time for a replay, but I'll be back with more PC Engine videos next week, and I'll have videos throughout the week, but go play this game. Bye bye.